Hello, everyone, and welcome to the TDWI webinar program. I'm Andrew Miller, and I'll be your moderator. For today's program, we're going to talk about leveraging cloud and data for BFSI, or Banking, Financial Services, and Insurance Industry, best bang for your buck. Our sponsor today is Impetus, and for our presentations today, we'll hear from Dave Stoddard with TDWI, and after Dave speaks, we'll have a presentation from Rajani Nair with Impetus. Before I turn over our time to our speakers, I'd like to go over a few basics. Today's webinar will be about an hour long, and at the end of their presentations, our speakers will host a question and answer period. If at any time during these presentations you'd like to submit a question, just use the Ask Question area on your screen to type in your question. If you have any technical difficulties during the webinar, please click on the Help area located below the slide window, and you'll receive technical assistance. If you'd like to discuss this webinar on Twitter with fellow attendees, just include the hashtag TDWI in your tweets. And finally, if you'd like a copy of today's presentation, you can use the Click Here for a PDF line there on the left middle of your console. And we are recording today's event, and we'll be emailing you a link to an archived version so you can view the presentation again later if you choose, or if you'd like to share it with a colleague. Again, today we're going to discuss leveraging cloud and data for BFSI, the best bang for your buck. And our first speaker today is Dave Stoddard. He is the Senior Director of Research for Business Intelligence at TDWI. And as an analyst, writer, and researcher, Dave has provided thought leadership on key topics in BI, analytics, IT, and information management for over 2 decades. Previously, he headed up his own independent firm and served as Vice President and Research Director with Ventana Research. He was the founding chief editor of Intelligent Enterprise and served as an editorial director there for 9 years. With TDWI Research, Dave focuses on providing research-based insight and best practices for organizations implementing BI, analytics, performance management, and related technologies and methods. With that, Dave, welcome, and I'll hand it over to you now.
Thanks very much, Andrew, and welcome to everyone today. I think we've got a great webinar today that definitely speaks to issues in some core parts of our TDWI community in banking, financial services, and insurance. So welcome to Rajani and to Impetus. This should be a good one. So let me get going with my presentation. So I'm going to give some TDWI research perspectives on some of the issues around cloud and data for BFSI. And certainly a lot of these things are going to be of relevance to other industries as well. So BFSI, banking, financial services, insurance, it's been a bumpy road, probably for a lot of industries, to be honest. But I think for all we have to do is read the papers every day to hear that the volatility of markets, changing of interest rates, different priorities that various customers, investors have. And so it's not easy to develop the right kind of products and services and to serve customers. So markets are volatile and competition is changing with fintech and other digital banking and competitors that are not wedded to traditional or older kind of paradigms of how to conduct a BFSI. Speed to data insight, it's becoming key to competing. So as it is in a lot of industries, it certainly is the case in these industries where you're trying to understand how to reduce costs, how to appeal to customers, how to comply with regulations that are often changing. So there's a lot of things in flux contributing to that bumpy road. Cloud migration, which I'll talk about more, is definitely a top priority. Data-driven companies, they're looking for how they can scale, expand, handle a democratized user base, so they're having more line of business and more managers, business managers working directly with data, and so they need the ability to scale, to be available and reliable, and looking for those kinds of systems in the cloud. Just to focus a little bit on customer centricity, because looking at our research, we see this as really such a key driver in all of these industries. Number one, organizations are looking for that 360-degree view of customer behavior across channels, because obviously things have changed where customers engage with all of these companies, not just by going down to the branch, the physical branch, or to calling a particular insurance agent, but they shop around the internet, they use social media, there's a lot of influences coming in, a lot of ways that organizations interact with customers and consumers and potential customers. And so that is certainly bringing in the idea of, can we get a 360-degree view of customers? Can we pull together the data from all these different channels and begin to get a concept of who is our customer, what's their behavior, what do they want? Mobile applications, mobile apps. There, a lot of users, particularly young customers, are encountered with banking and other services, financial services, through their mobile apps. And so these apps are capturing a lot of rich data. A lot of data can be developed in, relationship data about when they use the services, what's the context of how they use them, all those kinds of information that could be very valuable. So the 360-degree view of data is just getting bigger. There's lots of different types of data. To personalize, a lot of this is important to develop better personalization with customers. So not everything is one size fits all. Customers have different priorities, different needs. They want to feel like the company they're working with is informed about them and can address their particular concerns and issues and the kinds of products and services that they need. And so personalization is key to be able to sort of boil down all of the 360-degree view and the data for those needs, and also to fulfill new ideas that organizations have, particularly in banking, around self-service encounters and getting better use of the physical offices, the branches that they have, to be able to bring customers in, to have them have an experience there that can be personalized easily, that enriches their experience, that maybe educates them and guides them to different kinds of services that they could be using that they may not have been aware of, so that it's much more of an active place, the physical branch. And so that's a priority there. So as part of personalization is trying to use data effectively to build up the different services behind each kind of interaction. And then other things like payment modernization to fit new customer patterns. So another thing, kind of new generations of users are looking for things like real-time payment options to connect their accounts more effectively so that data can move very quickly between accounts. And so this is changing kind of the operational style in organizations, and trying to link that with an understanding of customers is very important. So along with customers, the other kind of, there's lots of things that BFSI companies are worried about, but along with customers, the other is fraud and abuse. So that's probably the other big bucket. And this area is really also changing quite a bit. And in some ways, as organizations look at more customer data, have more touch points, it increases the complexity of trying to fight fraud, because you're not just working with one particular channel or one way that you interact with customers. And so BFSI firms, they definitely suffer financial and reputational losses when there is a major case of fraud and abuse or cybercrime. So it's very important for these organizations to be up with the latest technologies, the latest methods to be able to combat fraud and abuse, which could be internal abuse. So, some of the areas that are really difficult for organizations as they fight fraud, while also trying to have these customer experiences they're also seeking. A lot of customer onboarding, but of course that can be a difficult point where there could be fraud, fake identities, other kinds of means that fraudulent customers may be using to defeat systems, and so that's often a vulnerable point. Accounts have to be protected, certainly for thinking of cybercrime and different points of access. So have to be thinking about that. Internal fraud dangers, as I mentioned, so the abuse there that illicit selling of customer data is something that organizations have to be watching. So they have to be looking at what users, how they're sharing data, how they're analyzing data, how they're using data. Is it protected? Digital transformation is changing lots of things in lots of industries in terms of processes and applications, moving from older traditional paper-based systems, maybe systems that were focused on one platform, now digitally transformed, often into the cloud, so that these processes are digital, and often that includes other kinds of threats that organizations hadn't really considered, and so they have to be thinking about what those might be, and modernize the traditional processes around them. a lot of this is moving, as I'll talk about a little bit more, rules-based approaches to AI and machine learning. So older traditional systems where they're setting in place rules, using those rules as sort of a governance in processes. It's not really scaling very well. It cannot move fast enough. It creates delays. There are gaps. And so AI and machine learning is really moving quickly into these kinds of scenarios where to help organizations adapt and scale and see threats and patterns that they hadn't seen before. So data insights are critical to identifying all of these things, the incidents that could be happening could be anomalies, could be faults, could be real. And so we have to be able to determine what they are, understand the patterns, be able to find fraud networks where they exist, because obviously these threats are adapting to different things companies are doing to try to combat the threats. So the fraud networks adjust. And so organizations have to be able to use data and particularly AI and machine learning to understand them. So AI and machine learning growth, it's driving the data needs. So we're talking about data and cloud in this webinar. Organizations really need scalable, resilient, flexible data management. So it can't be just, again, set in place and just forgotten about, but tended to really on an ongoing basis to support the extension in self-service analytics, as I mentioned, the democratization, lots more data science, AI and machine learning development and deployment. So AI and machine learning, it's become the basis of competition, certainly for the fintech kind of companies. They're building applications, mobile apps that are really based around data and that 360-degree customer view to find new kinds of products that are appealing to customers and to potential customers. It's important for customer-centric innovation, reducing friction in customer experiences. So knowing where that friction is to be able to kind of monitor, use more advanced measures of data observability, for example, to use AI and machine learning effectively to understand what the customer experience is, where they could be encountering problems, to look at ways they can innovate to develop new services, maybe tweak a service that to give them a customer advantage there. Speed to insight. So this area is really about, there's so much data, petabytes of data in many cases. So speed to insight, faster decisions, being able to use automation, AI and machine learning driven automation effectively, ultimately to help business processes like lending approvals, policy offers, making sure that the policy is really personalized for what that particular customer needs, say an insurance policy. And so data is so valuable for enriching all of that. And it helps companies be proactive. So taking those predictive insights, being able to sharpen forecasts, to be able to have flexible forecasting that is changing, as I mentioned, the bumpy road, as conditions change, be able to understand how that change affects previous forecasts and be able to adjust, to be able to respond to events and patterns that are happening in the marketplace. So all of that is adding up to more data, an increasing importance in being able to analyze, to visualize, to work with that data, get the maximum value out of it. Okay, so let me put some research up here as we can look at. And first is just to show the strong interest in just moving beyond legacy systems. The data ambitions they're putting pressure on the legacy on-premises systems, and this is sort of, really the data needs are one of the things that's really driving organizations to the cloud, is because the legacy systems are not adequate. They have fixed limitations on on-premises storage and processing, number of users that can be supported, number of applications that can be supported. So modernization of these is critical. And so we see here that strong interest, 54% are modernizing now, 29% plan to do so in the near future. As I mentioned here, it's not just technology, so we have to remember that culture is important. So it's not just about the platform, but you have to think about how people are using the platforms, where your users inside the organization are encountering difficulties. Can you build a culture that is literate, data literate, and accepts questioning of assumptions, using data effectively, sort of following the conclusions of the analytics and being able to operationalize the analytics effectively. So that's all not just technology issues, but culture issues, and then data governance issues to make sure they're really sort of the defensive kind, as I've mentioned, about using it to spot fraud, things like that, but also the, I guess we call offensive, really about improving the data quality, improving the data's relevance to users. Lots of practices there that, again, are sort of not just technology, but really about how people work with the data. Cloud migration, it changes the dimensions of what's possible. So that's one of the things that can affect the culture. Is it's not just about lift and shift and moving to a new platform and users won't encounter anything different. In some ways, you want them to see the difference, the speed to insight to be better, to be ability to manage more users and more types of workloads, so be able that it's in advance. And so think about how it changes the dimensions of what is possible. So here, let's look at some other data migration data. And so this, we looked at here, we asked for your organizations, how would you rank the importance of the following objectives for modernizing data platforms? So we saw before the strong interest, data platforms, integration, and management. And this really just illustrates the importance of cloud. So cloud migration is at the top. It addresses several of the modernization objectives that are listed really here and in our research, such as increasing the flexibility and speed, dealing with the higher data volume, the variety of data storage, with scalable storage and processing. So having the platforms to do that. Cloud adoption, the other thing that's interesting about it is it's often business driven, sort of IT and business, of course, working together. But the business wants these kinds of things. They want the flexibility, the agility, the scale, the ability to work with data, to be able to democratize how people work with data. And so it's a business-driven kind of concept in many cases. So CIOs and chief data officers need to be aligning adoption and migration phases carefully with what the business needs. So to make sure you're prioritizing, particularly if you're doing phased migration to the cloud, make sure each phase is picking up what is a business priority, and that it has sort of a totality, that you're looking at all the dependencies that may be involved in that phase and moving them together. So that kind of planning is very important. The serverless pay-as-you-go computing models, it can improve business alignment, obviously, because you've got that elasticity so that when there needs to be an acceleration of data capabilities, you've got that. You can work with the cloud that way, and you can pull back when you don't need it. So that's all very important. And then let me show one more slide here, a research slide, looking at cloud data integration and management concerns. So here we ask, how would you rank the importance of addressing the following issues and critical to accelerating the value of your organization's use of data for the cloud, that is, for data integration and management. And on top is connecting and integrating views of on-premises and cloud-based data. So that really speaks to the hybrid multi-cloud, or sometimes multi-cloud, but certainly hybrid issues where you have systems that are on-premises and systems that are in the cloud. You need to be able to provide a view across that, be able to govern across that. So that's definitely a stress that organizations are facing when they think of cloud and data. Access to and sharing of data located in multiple cloud platforms. So there's the multi-cloud, that you may have systems on Amazon, on Google, or maybe multiple systems on each of these kinds of platforms, Microsoft, Azure. So often organizations we see in our research have a variety of cloud platforms, and then even within, say, an Amazon, you have multiple cloud platforms. So that's becoming an issue. Scalability, supporting rapid growth and concurrent users. Certainly an issue there, as I mentioned. You want to democratize to have more users. Increase data silos to unplanned cloud, due to unplanned cloud adoption. This is where understanding what those phased migrations will be, the cloud adoption is so important, because organizations suffer already from lots of data silos that are difficult to bridge, difficult to access, try to get that 360-degree view of customers, for example. And the cloud, unfortunately, can exacerbate that, because it's so easy to spin up cloud systems that often departments will do that, and then all of a sudden you've got the same silo problem, or really exacerbated, in the cloud. So it's important to have a good plan, have good migration strategies, to be able to understand how to deal with the silos, consolidate where it's important to do so, or use middleware layers to improve connection there. And then finally, access control. I won't read all of these, but access control, security, and data governance challenges is also high on the list, number 5 there. And as we've spoken to, a lot of these issues are critical. So strategies today must address cloud data issues. So achieving goals really for secure, agile, and scalable cloud data, those are sort of the 3 big concepts that are important. Cloud migration from on-premises often can be slow, manual, and error-prone. Organizations, again, just have a lot of ambitions of getting to the cloud, but then discover that it's very slow to get there. So having the right technologies in place, the right practices in place is critical. You need a data strategy, again, that prioritizes what to migrate, understanding the dependencies. There's pressure because to accelerate return on investment from these systems. And I mentioned it is business driven, but also organizations are looking, we see in our research, to go to the cloud to control costs. They want to reduce costs of IT, reduce or at least manage costs of data as they expand. And so it's important there to use analytics effectively, the data observability, the monitoring, to see how you can balance cost control with the innovations that you're trying to achieve. Skill requirements are changing. So again, that gets some of those culture issues. You're going to have shortages in some areas. So be able to look at what are the new skill sets you need. It often is around data, being able to sort of work with the data, integrate the data, govern the data, have good data stewardship in your organization. And so data security and governance, managing and protecting sensitive data, again, critical. Let me ask a poll question of our audience as I've addressed some of the challenges and issues. Would be very interested to know, what are your challenges, the top challenge in your organization? So I'm sure in some ways all of these are important, but which one is your most important challenge? So the number one is creating a robust data platform to support our spectrum of use cases. So there you're trying to understand, you've got more workloads, more kinds of applications, more types of users. Do you want to go to the cloud to get that robust platform to do that? Supporting growth in analytics and data science, including AI and machine learning. And so here we, again, see in our research, this is often prominent as your organization wants to do more with analytics and data science. Having a data strategy to address security and fraud detection priorities. Among BFSI, I'm sure that's high, so we'll take a look and see there. Cost control. As I mentioned, a lot of organizations trying to migrate to the cloud to at least control costs, if not reduce costs. Developing and deploying data-driven services that attract and retain customers. So the customer-centric ideas, you've got innovations and things you want to do competitively to improve the customer experience. And then finally, if there's one we don't mention that's top priority, type in the ask a question box, and that'll give us something we can talk about in the audience Q&A at the end of our webinar. All right, so let's take a look at what the answers are. And I think I'm going to refresh this one. So this is our early view as the polls are coming in here. So let's take another look and see if the results change just slightly. Okay, so we can see here that, 40.9% having a data strategy to address security and fraud detection priorities. So this is actually the number one. So I wanted to be able to write these down so I can talk about them later, although that one's probably not too tough to remember. Just about 5% looking at cost control, so that's a little lower than I would have expected. 9% developing and deploying data-driven services, 9.1%. 4.5% have an other. Okay, good. So we'll take a look at that as we get to the audience Q&A. And then look up at the top here. So about a little over a quarter, 27.3%, looking at robust data platforms, 13.6% about expanding data science. And then, as I mentioned, really about 40.9% looking at security and fraud detection. Great, thank you very much. So that gives us some interesting data there. So just to conclude my presentation about leveraging cloud and data, aim for measurable business benefits. It's definitely business drivers behind this. Manage and monitor cloud migrations. So you don't want to do just a kind of a lift and shift where you're not looking at what's going on, but think about phase migrations. We see this commonly in TDWI research. Often based on the business initiative, could be based on an application, building a customer data warehouse. That's often a goal the organizations want, so they want to migrate to be able to develop that, the ability for the 360-degree view with the customer data. Or it could be around security, governance, access control priorities. And then enable analytics and AI and machine learning innovation. So customer centricity being a target for this, fraud and abuse detection, we see that's very important in our audience today. And then operational efficiency and excellence, also critical. All right, with that, thank you very much. Andrew, I'll hand it back to you.
Great, thank you so much, Dave, for that great presentation. Before I introduce our next speaker, just a quick reminder to our audience that if you do have a question, you can enter it at any time in the Ask a Question window. We will be answering audience questions in the final portion of our program. This does bring us to our next speaker, who is Rajani Nair with Impetus. Rajani leads the cloud and data engineering practice at Impetus and has been responsible for strategizing, planning, and delivering large-scale data customer projects. A certified SAFe program consultant and agile coach, Rajani is adept in building and monitoring large data engineering teams. She has 20 years of extensive experience building modern data platforms, batch and real-time streaming processing, and data analytics and predictive modeling. Please welcome Rajani, and with that, I'll hand it over to you now.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. So let's continue on the same topic. How do we maximize the ROI leveraging cloud and data? So let's look at some of the, so basically, if you look at the insurance companies have seen the most data breaches, closely followed by banks and investment companies, right? So data breaches and all is the topic. So let's talk a little on that. Now I'm going to show you a snapshot. So if you look at, these are some of the biggest data breaches ever. You can see some big names here. So what is the need of the hour, right? So what do we do to solve this? So now enterprises today need a strong data foundation for resilience, growth, and innovation. Now, how do we bring that, right? So, so here we would like to take this opportunity to see and to show you what Impetus has to offer. So Impetus holistic platform-centric approach. It is a combination of people, process, and technology to help any enterprise go from its current state to a unified platform. Now, our people, which is the superior talent with their multi-year long learnings in this space, a strong customer relationship combined with scientific approach to ensure a robust platform through our data platform and cloud maturity assessment model. Now, all of this, along with this, we have, so Impetus brings in a unique set of solutions for automated data migration and data pipelining. And with that, we combine our cloud and data engineering services. Now, all of this put together brings in a holistic platform-centric approach to get to a unified data platform. Now, the approach starts with what is the actual business value being delivered. And in fact, almost all companies want to establish a single source of truth to be able to deliver accurate business insights at speed and unlock more business and AI/ML use cases, right? So use cases with basically with ease, speed, and scale. Now, through our approach, we take any enterprise's current state of data platform to unified platform on cloud. Now, an enterprise may be facing challenges like low speed to access, non-performance systems, multiple data sources, high TCO, etc. Well, we create a solid data foundation for them, which enables them to unleash business value, enable data as a service and analytics as a service. Now, through its approach, Impetus brings in a unique set of solutions for automated data migration and data pipelining and cloud and data engineering services for application modernization and DevOps. Now, along with our mature team and processes, we bring to the table a comprehensive cloud maturity assessment to assess the present cloud state against around, say, 12 dimensions for gap identification. And our USPs are various data platform and DevOps accelerators and enablers that speed up platform setup time from about, say, 12 weeks to 1 week and help reduce the time to market significantly and provide a single pane view across DevOps metrics, availability, cloud cost, and security. Now, moving on. So if you look at this, here we show you in terms of few strong business benefits that Impetus has delivered to its customers across various important business and technology parameters, right? So if you look at these parameters around data volume, cost, time to market, you can see that some of the significant work we have done for some of our payment and service card service providers, for the airline industry in terms of cost, for the telecom service providers in terms of time to market and all of that. So this was just a snapshot of what all the kind of impact we have delivered to different customers through the data platforms and cloud. Well, that's what I wanted to cover in the presentation. Over to you, Andrew, for the next segment.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Rajani. This is now when we're moving into the fireside chat portion here. So I will ask that Dave rejoin us and we can begin the conversation.
Great. Rajani, thank you for your presentation. So what do you think are the top technology concerns and trends in BFSI today? What are you seeing? You get out there and see what your customers are doing.
Right. So if we talk about the top technology concerns or challenges that we are seeing, I would like to start with the first item to be increasing competition and changing business models, right? So in order to maintain a competitive edge, the traditional banks and credit unions, they must provide a simplified and intuitive customer experience. Now, failure to adapt to any of these changing demands is just not an option. These financial institutions, they must be structured for agility and be prepared to pivot when necessary, right? So that's very important. And the second aspect which I want to touch upon is the cultural shift part, right? So in the digital world, as you were also mentioning, Dave, that there's no room for manual processes and systems, right? So the financial services, they need to really think of technology-based resolutions to banking industry challenges. So it's important that financial institutions promote a culture of innovation in which technology is leveraged to optimize their existing processes and procedures for bringing about maximum efficiency. So this cultural shift needs to be towards a technology-first attitude. So that's something which is of a concern and has to be acted on quickly, right? So that's the second aspect. The third thing would be, I would say, the regulatory compliance. So there are growing number of regulations that the banks and credit unions, they must comply with, and compliance can significantly strain resources and is often sort of dependent on the ability to correlate data from the disparate sources, right? So this is another thing which is of concerns for the BFSI folks. The other aspect is the customer. So the growing customer expectations, right? So today's consumer is smarter, savvier, and more informed than ever before, and expects a very high degree of personalization and convenience out of their banking experience, right? So, and in fact, with each new generation of banking customers comes a more innate understanding of technology, and as a result, an increased expectation of digitized experiences. The other aspect around customer is how do we retain the customers, right? What about the customer retention aspects? Again, financial services customers, they expect personalized and meaningful experiences through very simple and intuitive interface on any device, anywhere, and at any time, right? So these aspects of customer is another thing which is going to be very challenging for the BFSIs to really step up their game. Now, the other aspect is security and data breaches. I think as we just saw about, the security data breaches. So with the series of these high-profile breaches over the past few years, security is definitely one of the leading banking industry challenges, right? Now, and above all, I would say innovation, because innovation is the key, right? So sustainable success in business requires insight, agility, rich client relationships, and continuous innovation. So the financial service organizations leveraging the latest business technology, particularly around cloud applications, have a key advantage in the digital transformation race. So they can innovate faster. And of course, the power of cloud technology is its agility and scalability, right? So innovation definitely is, another aspect that needs to be taken into consideration. So in a nutshell, these are some of the challenges that I feel, Dave.
Yeah, that's a fantastic list. I think I agree with you about the cultural shifts. Often we emphasize technology as we should, but although you mentioned the tech-first attitude is something that's a big change, and particularly for more established banks and financial services kinds of organizations, we see that as a challenge, is to think tech first, and that's often how competitors in fintech are able to kind of move faster. You mentioned the regulatory, definitely, and customer expectations, security breaches, and then just the ability to innovate in all of them. So to meet these challenges through technology, what are you seeing as current trends in cloud and data adoption?
Right. So, so in 2023, we can expect to see companies continuing to leverage cloud and data in order to access the new and innovative technologies, as well as, of course, to drive efficiencies in their own operations and processes. Now, cloud can be a catalyst for enterprise business transformation and a potential game changer for how financial service organizations operate in the future. Right now, talking more on the trends, what I feel is, of course, increased investment in cloud for security and resilience that is there to stay and there to, move forward, right? So spending on cybersecurity and building resilience against everything like data breach will become even more of a priority during the coming year. And however, as many companies look to cut costs in the face of the forecasted economic recession, the emphasis is likely to be on the search for innovative and cost-efficient ways in order to get the most bang for the buck, right? So this will mean what? Greater use of AI and ML, and these AI ML integrations are going to be increasingly popular with the scale of data coming into play, because they not only are able to access data quickly, but able to provide value in a variety of different ways. Right, so increased investment in cloud for security and resilience definitely is going to be, one of the upcoming trends. In fact, going to be continuing on the trends. And the second aspect is, of course, as we are also talking about the multi-cloud and hybrid cloud, right? It's going to be an increasingly popular strategy because of, it offers a number of advantages, right? Including improved flexibility, security, and whatnot, right? So that's another aspect. Now, the third important thing is data, right? So data is the new battleground for banks, right? So most banks still do not have a coherent enterprise-wide data strategy, right? They don't have a enterprise-wide strategy for data, and they're trying to compete without a data strategy. It's like going into a battle with both eyes closed, right? So that's definitely is, going to be something which is, has to be taken into consideration, and more work around that is going to definitely happen. The other aspect is FinOps and AIOps, right? So companies are looking even more closely at cloud from an ROI perspective, and the need to balance financial considerations of the business with technical requirements has spawned the development of financial ops or FinOps as a new role in many organizations, right? So FinOps is what? It's an evolving cloud financial management discipline and cultural practice, which enables your organizations to get maximum business value by helping the engineering, finance, and technology and business teams to sort of collaborate on data-driven spending decisions, right? So this particular role is now going to be all the more important in the coming days. The other aspect I was talking about is the AIOps, right? So AIOps is something which, so basically it combines big data and machine learning to automate your IT operation processes, right? Which including your event correlation, anomaly detection, and causality determination, and all of that, right? So AI platforms will utilize big data on cloud, modern machine learning, and other advanced analytics technologies to directly and indirectly enhance the IT operations. So IT operations like your monitoring, automation, and service desk functions, which is a key factor for financial services for optimization. So in a nutshell, I would say these are some of the things that I feel are going to be really trending for the BFSI segment.
Yeah, I think that's great. The FinOps is very interesting. I mean, imagine you're seeing that build off of DevOps, Data Ops, and then enabling organizations to see, as you mentioned, tech first, and from a culture perspective, that can be very difficult to, well, what do we do? But I think a FinOps can provide a framework for organizations to be able to handle that change. So let's see. I think you've spoken to it, but do you think cloud is a major component driving the data strategy? You mentioned the importance of having a data strategy, and that often these firms, often the data strategy might be kind of old. We see that in organizations that it's sort of, yeah, we have one, but it's we have not updated it. And so do you say it's a major component driving the cloud that is driving data strategy for BFSI today?
Right. So I would say absolutely, right? Because cloud is now a major catalyst for enterprise business transformation, especially a potential game changer for how BFSI organizations will operate in the future. Now, banks are under rising pressure to find innovative ways to reduce costs and increase operational efficiencies. Well, at the same time, the pandemic made it very, very clear that banks could no longer put off modernizing legacy systems in order to deliver the products and services consumers now expect, right? So that's not an option anymore, right? Now, if we talk about, some of the stats, so as per recent research, prior to the COVID-19 epidemic, approximately about 91% of the banks and other financial institutions were utilizing or planning to use the cloud. Now, in the last 3 to 5 years, companies in the global financial services industry have embarked on a cloud journey, which accelerated notably in the previous 1.5 years, right? About 12 to 18 months. And if you look at some of the Gartner analysis, the latest ones, modernization is the most widely cited objective in banking and investing services. While we have seen a multi-fold increase in cloud usage in 2022, I would say 70% of the banking leaders expect the cloud spending to further increase in coming years. And statistics show how banks and credit unions increasingly turn to cloud to store data and adopt the applied analytics to meet their capacity and speed requirements. Now, having said that, many banks have found it really difficult to give up their legacy applications in favor of cloud. With very real concerns about information security, customer-sensitive data, and the need to build cloud-appropriate risk management frameworks, right? Now, the reputational and regulatory exposure presented by the migrating, large amounts of sensitive data is really daunting, and the financial services industries in general, they have a low tolerance for failure, right? But
right.
Risk averse, but at the same time, the risk averse attitudes are evolving, and in fact, quickly. And as I said before as well, that there is a cultural shift to, technology first attitude. So that's still actually there, and, people are looking up and moving towards that direction. Now, banks are still transitioning from something they know well, which is their own in-house data centers, to something entirely new and pitfalls about, right? So for cloud to start driving the major data strategy, I would say that there are a couple of things which are very important for the banks to really consider. First is the data organization part. So the enterprise-wide cloud migrations are multi-layered, involving more than just transferring the data. So banks must implement automated processes and digital platforms that will not only allow for expeditious data collection, but are primarily focused on the data organization and analysis. So that's one aspect. Now, the second aspect is the data security part, right? So protecting customers' data and sensitive banking information is really critical. By placing this valuable information within the cloud via online or virtual platforms, businesses run a greater risk of security infringement or threats. But the catch here is the reward may outweigh the risk, right? So once up and running, the cloud offers banks tremendous security advantages, and consumer banks can take advantage by developing cloud-based tools that can help introduce new features in apps, assist in detecting fraud, and even use machine learning to assist in detecting money laundering and whatnot, right? So that's one thing that definitely needs to be considered. The third aspect is your I would say the customer experience, right? So that is something to really watch for, because the cloud experience of a financial institution is only beneficial if customers can easily access and sort of intuitively operate it, right? So when implementing these virtual platforms, it's important to ensure that these platforms and technologies are comprehensive and that customers can easily use them to access their data, perform transactions, manage accounts, and all of that, right? So customer experience is another thing that's very important. And lastly, I would say moving away from legacy. So banks should really consider implementing innovative systems and technologies in order to fully explore the possibilities of moving towards the cloud. Now, by releasing the hold that banks have on legacy systems, financial institutions should really focus on innovative technologies. So in a nutshell, I would say that all of these four factors, right, moving away from legacy, having a good customer experience, data security, data organizations, these are some of the things that, can sort of really drive the major data strategy for these for the banks, right? So that's what I wanted to talk about, Dave.
Rajani, those are great points, and I think things that we see in our research as well, having to have a good customer experience and data security, as we saw, of course, in our audience poll today, as being such a critical issue. And although I think organizations that used to be probably the number one issue that was preventing organizations from going to the cloud. Now I think they're getting more a secure feeling about security in the cloud, or less reticent to move. So you set out those. Did you want to speak to anything about the solution? What is the solution to implement a cloud and data strategy to address those points?
Right. Right. So the solution is to create a unified data platform on cloud that can support all enterprise initiatives at scale and with speed, and to successfully mitigate the various challenges and risks we just spoke about, right? So BFSIs actually today generate petabytes of structured and unstructured data from a variety of sources, right? So while many enterprises use solutions like data lakes to ingest this data, they are actually unable to unlock the business value from it. In fact, the single source of truth continues to elude the business, which in turn, of course, impacts the decision making and response time and all of that, right? Mm-hmm. In fact, the data silos, duplicate records, inaccessibility, and lack of security and governance capabilities further limit the solution's usage across enterprise, making it difficult to scale. So in order to align cloud and data strategies with enterprises' business goals, the company must take a holistic platform-centric approach to set up a secure, robust, governed, high-performance data platform. In fact, a purpose-built platform that can support all analytics initiatives at enterprise scale across teams and across geographies. Further, creating a data platform on cloud helps organizations accelerate innovation by unifying data science with engineering and business. With a unified data platform on cloud, the financial services companies can easily train and deploy ML models for all artificial intelligence applications and enable data as a service and analytics as a service and unlock multiple business use cases, right? So I would say that these are some of the things that needs to be taken into consideration in terms of how do we solve this problem.
Well, if we think about you mentioned the data platform and the purpose-built data platform. Maybe we could talk a little bit about that. If you have strategies and best practices that you could recommend to have a robust data platform.
Right. So BFSI companies need modern data platforms that can rapidly store, access, and analyze massive amounts of data, right? So extracting value from their data can result in tremendous business advantages, such as your personalized marketing, new services creation, process automation, fraud detection, and prevention. Now, in terms of talking about some of the best practices that one should consider when creating a robust data platform on cloud, firstly, I would say we need to focus on a domain-based architecture, right, that is aligned with the business goals and needs. So once your architecture is aligned with the business goals and needs, whatever you implement, the outcome will be in terms of what the business needs, right? So that has to be the first thing that needs to be taken into consideration. Then, of course, the data democratization and data access, right? So we need to eliminate these data silos across the organization, create the single source of truth, which is the foundation for a unified data platform on cloud, right? So that the same data is accessible, across the organization. Then, execute these real-time data processing and analytics, because, data should be in a state to be made ready to be processed at real time, right? So all your ingestion aspects, your storage aspects, all of this needs to be, taken into consideration. And not to forget the data processing, right? So data processing using modern technologies. So this data is coming from structured, unstructured sources, multiple formats. Actually, the purpose is lost if you're not able to process this data and make it really consumable to derive insight. So the data processing part using the modern technologies is another aspect that is very, very important. Then the third thing is adopt cloud, right? So moving on to cloud is one aspect, but making sure that whatever the architecture is really mature enough. So you assess your cloud maturity across various dimensions and bridge the gaps. And, so we need to really examine the current state of your architecture and identify the gaps with the existing processes and recommend solutions to fix the gaps and implement the same, and in fact, continuously strive to move to the next level of maturity of the platform, right? So that's another thing which is very, very important. And then we can talk about the data architecture modernization part. So your architecture needs to be really built flexible and extensible so that you get increased business value out of it, right? Then lastly, I would say, self-service. Self-service is something which is very important. It should be usable by technology as well as the non-technology teams across the company, right? And of course, automation is an aspect. You need to automate wherever possible to scale up and incorporate the concepts of your data governance, scalable, secure, compliant, and cost-effective, right? So all of these aspects definitely needs to be, taken into consideration. So these modern data platforms, once you take into all of these into consideration, they allow the businesses to realize the full value of their unique data assets, right? Creating insights faster through AI-based data engineering, and even unlock the value of your legacy data. Now, a modern data platform on cloud permits an organization's data to become scalable, accessible, manageable, analyzable with the help of, cloud-based services. So it ensures compliance with data security and privacy guidelines while enabling data access across the enterprise, right? So using these modern data approach, whatever we spoke about, organizations can deliver a better customer experience, drive their top line growth, reduce costs, and gain a competitive advantage.
Great. Well, I want to make sure we leave enough time for audience questions, but one thing that we do see is around cost control. A lot of organizations that I mentioned are trying to move to the cloud to reduce costs, but they're often gets kind of sticker shock. They don't see where those are coming from. So, with the current market tone, you mentioned the potential of a recession. One of the top considerations of financial services companies today, and really all BFSI, is cost control. Can these data platforms be created on a budget to accelerate return on investment? And can they do that without compromising security or innovation?
Right. So maybe I'll answer this quickly. I would say that there are some aspects, of course, which needs to be taken into consideration to make sure that the cost control and you accelerate the ROI at the same time, do not compromise on the security and innovation part. Firstly, of course, use of the reusable technology components, right? That is going to be really important. Then other than that, your accelerators will be required to reduce the time to market. Then your business use cases replication across different teams and geographies, effective data governance and compliance to avoid resource wastage, but above all, the cloud adoption, right? So enterprises can save substantial capital and operating costs on equipment, infrastructure, and software by moving your data lakes on cloud. So, but with that, we have these features like with pay-as-you-go, subscription-based cost structure, right? The cloud is more cost-effective than on-premise models, given, there's a caveat, given careful planning and execution. So we really need to budget as per the cloud consumption model, configure the, chargeback models for incoming and outgoing data, and keep track of the operational expenses to assess the ROI. right? Because these effective chargeback models enable users to, trace the consumption to a granular level and manage costs more effectively, right? So these are some of the important aspects. So while planning your movement to cloud, enterprises often, at times ignore certain things of, the hidden cost of fact, right? So we need to really make sure that we measure, monitor, and optimize the spends at regular intervals to measure the ROI and keep the ROI under, things under control.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you wanted to close with just a use case example. I know Impetus has helped a lot of BFSI companies, so maybe you could just, if you wanted to talk about one as we close our roundtable.
Correct, yeah. So I like to talk about, some of the work that we done for, BFSI organizations. So one of the things would be the Fortune 500 credit card company. So we help the organization become a game changer in the industry by enriching customer experience, optimizing merchant engagement, in fact, improving telesales and personalized marketing offers. Well, go data first is the mantra here. So we help the organization create modernized data platform to have a single source of truth and harness the power of real-time data analytics and AI/ML to improve the customer service. Now, this platform has unleashed hundreds of machine learning and analytical use cases, and in fact, more than 500 use cases, right? Now, this has brought in generational advancement in the various facets of the customer's business, and this journey continues to develop. So the data lake creation has led to the growth in various groups, be it your risk and fraud detection. It advanced never like before. And this has led to better merchant engagement and customer experience, in fact, revolutionized the telesales and a lot of mission critical use cases, in the risk space. In fact, on the marketing side as well, the personalized and customized offers led to offer acceptance increasing by many folds, right? So we see that every function has experienced generational advancement, right? So that's one example, and maybe I'll just take one more example before we close this. Mm-hmm. The other one is the insurance brokerage firm, right? So we help the customer transform their customer experience, leverage analytics to help customers find insurance programs for risk management in the digital economy. So we created this self-service, fully governed, modern, unified data platform with deep analytic capabilities, and that can provide your intelligent insights, improve customer experience, and create new revenue streams for the company.
That's great. Okay, well, thank you, Rajani. Let me ask Andrew, maybe you want to take over here for audience Q&A.
Yeah, definitely. Great conversation, you both, and I'll jump right into it in the interest of time. So this first question will be for Rajani. Is the Impetus data platform offering cloud agnostic?
Okay, so Impetus. So if you look at Impetus, has helped several Fortune 100 enterprise companies transform their data-driven business with modern ETL, BI, data lakes, and AI/ML. Right. So leveraging a cloud-first approach and accelerators for adoption and management, Impetus can help identify and address the challenges of building a data lake on cloud. So we help enterprises accelerate the data lake creation, say in days versus months, and large-scale migration in months versus years, and management of workloads on the cloud, helping them reduce time to market and manage the overall costs, right? So yes, we have extensive experience working with many customers in creating unified data platform and do a lot of application modernization on cloud, and for different public clouds, be it your AWS, Azure, or GCP, right? So the offering that I spoke about from Impetus, it's a holistic platform-centric approach, which is actually a combination of people, process, and technology, right? So it combines your multi-long-year, learnings in this space and the robust sort of platform-centric approach. So basically a scientific approach to ensure that the platform the cloud maturity assessment model, which examines the current state, recommends solutions to bridge the gaps, and helps to implement the solutions, right? So in this, if you look at all of this, along with this, Impetus brings in a unique set of solutions for automated data migration, data pipelining with our cloud and data engineering services. Now, all of this thing brings in the holistic platform-centric approach. Now, in this, none of this is tied to any particular cloud, right? So all of this is very generic and cloud agnostic.
Okay, fantastic. Great answer there. Dave, I'm gonna actually move over to you for this question. But Rajani, if you have any thoughts, please add them. So Dave, data governance is a key priority for us. We need to manage sensitive data and adhere to regulations, including responding to audits. What practices do you recommend?
Well, I think one is that, again, arguing against the one size fits all because you have different requirements throughout the organization. So make sure your governance is flexible because often our organizations will just sort of do a blanket approach that isn't really necessary. So look at the data you're working with, whether it's sensitive data, what degree of sensitivity, the regulations are applied to it. And then think, people, process, and technology are all important. You need to get the people together, the stakeholders together, so that everyone is on board. And usually it's done through a governance committee or a center of excellence kind of committee are really effective. And then have processes in place and make sure you're updating those processes to the new regulations and new kinds of data that you have and new workloads that you have. But then finally, Rajani talked very well about tech first. Think about tech first for governance as well, because there are new technologies in place, often AI-driven kind of constraint capabilities that you can build in so that governance is more automated and less manual and not taking up as much people's time.
All right, terrific. I'll move on to the next question here. Back to you, Rajani. Is the data platform also used for healthcare industry? What are the common use cases there?
Right. So definitely, right. It is not very much tied to a particular industry. It is definitely important for healthcare industry as well. So some of the work that we have done for our leading US-based health care firm. So we help the organization transform the patient's experience by building a solid data foundation to unleash a variety of use cases and faster rollout of products requiring integrated data access, right? So in fact, we help them create a self-service, fully governed, modern, unified platform on cloud that can help achieve your single source of truth and democratize the data access across the organization. So this is a complete HIPAA compliant platform that we worked for this particular customer. Right, so that's one example, and the other healthcare would be, creating. We helped one of the customers create a unified, scalable platform for quick integration with their EMRs and EHRs, right? Your electronic health records and electronic medical records. So this platform was required to interpret messages from healthcare providers and translate into a format, which can be used for expected, appointment booking systems, right? So the important aspect here is there should be no message failure while the data exchange with healthcare providers happen. Right. So we helped the organization, accomplish integration with leading EHR and EMR platforms, resulting in significant increase in the number of bookings through the platform. And in fact, this has opened up business opportunities to integrate with healthcare providers. So these are some of the examples on the healthcare segment, Andrew.
Fantastic. We'll squeeze one last question in, and it'll be for you, Rajani. So a last question, how do you ensure that the adopted cloud modernization strategy is right? Are there any important factors for consideration?
Okay. So any organization that has onboarded their journey to cloud, so just moving to cloud is not enough, right? So while cloud provides a lot of flexibility and saves efforts, we should be able to make the right choice available with whatever services and options that we have. So we have to make a scalable and optimized cloud architecture. But how do we build that gold standard architecture so that the cloud platform is at a top level maturity, right? So we need to really examine the current state of architecture and identify gaps with the existing processes, recommend solution to fix the gaps and implement the same. And in fact, continuously strive to move to the next level of maturity of the platform. So we need to really assess the current state of our cloud platform against the foundational pillars like your operational excellence, talk about your security, reliability, performance efficiency, and cost optimization. So Impetus, has a framework called KAMA, which is the Cloud Architecture Maturity Assessment Framework, which just does that, right? So which has been, and it has been developed based on our vast experience helping organizations migrate and build a well-architected framework on cloud. In fact, KAMA analyzes your spending behavior and recommends a solution to build efficient and cost-optimized system. It is cloud agnostic, not dependent on any specific cloud. It supports hybrid and multi-cloud. In fact, based on our year-long learnings from different Fortune 500 customers and our advanced partnership with the cloud providers, this framework has been designed, and it is not like a very generic solution given to our customers. In fact, it is handcrafted and customized as per the problem statement of the customer, right? And so this is something which, which is an offering from Impetus, but of course, it is in line with, how do we ensure the, cloud migration, modernization strategy is correct, right? So these are some of the steps.
Fantastic. Thank you both very much. Unfortunately, this is the end of our time today, so let me once again thank our speakers. We did hear from Dave Stoddard with TDWI and Rajani Nair with Impetus. I'd also like to thank Impetus for sponsoring today's webinar. And you can please remember that we recorded today's webinar and we'll be emailing you a link to an archived version of the presentation, which you can feel free to share with colleagues. Also, don't forget, if you'd like a copy of today's presentation, use the click here for a PDF line. And finally, I would like to remind you that TDWI offers a wealth of information, including the latest research, reports, and webinars about BI, data warehousing, and a host of related topics. So I encourage you to tap into that expertise at tdwi.org. Lastly, from all of us here, let me say thank you so much for attending. This does conclude today's event.